Hello family, welcome to Stories with Storytime. Please subscribe and leave a like for us. It means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you, as you do.
She saw an elderly lady struggling to carry her belongings and decided to help her. Then, the old woman gave her a rare item that would change her life forever. But later, someone close to her did something terrible and everything began to fall apart. Why did the item suddenly vanish? Why did the person who stole it begin acting crazy in public? Sit back and find out as we explore this shocking and emotional story. It was a blazing hot afternoon in a quiet neighborhood of the town. The sun beat down harshly and dust covered the road. Two friends were walking quickly down the street. One was Liana, a young woman with a gentle face. The other was Zane, a young man who seemed sharp and full of big ideas. Liana's clothes were worn out and her face looked drained. She hadn't slept well for weeks. Between cleaning homes during the day and taking care of her younger brother at night, her body was giving up, but her mind refused to quit. She glanced at Zane and asked, "Are you sure this place will give me a job?" Zane smiled. "Don't worry, I know the supervisor there. I'll talk to him. Just follow me." Liana nodded. Her legs felt weak, but she kept moving. There was nothing left at home. If she didn't get this job, she didn't know what she would do next. The road ahead seemed endless, but they didn't stop. Liana held on to hope, and Zane was confident his connection would help. As they turned a corner, they noticed an elderly woman walking slowly ahead of them. She was extremely frail, and her legs wobbled. On her head, she was carrying a large container of water. The bucket looked heavy, and the old woman kept tilting to one side, sweat pouring down her face. Suddenly, she stopped and called out in a weak voice, "Please, my children, help me carry this. My body is tired." Liana slowed down and looked at the woman. Zane tugged at her arm. "Let's go. We're already late. If we don't get there on time, the supervisor might leave." Liana looked at the old woman again. Her legs were trembling and she seemed ready to collapse, but she needed help. Liana spoke gently. Zane frowned at the old woman, his tone sharp. "Ma'am, we don't have time," he said. "We're on our way to somewhere important. Why did you carry this knowing you're too old?" The old woman blinked slowly, saying nothing. Her hands still shook. Liana quickly turned to Zane, surprise in her eyes. "Zane, how can you talk like that?" she asked. "She's an old woman. She needs help." Zane crossed his arms and shook his head. "This isn't our problem, Liana. Let her rest or wait for someone else." "We've come too far for this." Liana took a deep breath. "But what if she falls?" she said softly. "What if this is the only help she finds today?" Zane looked away and said nothing, but it was clear he was upset. He tapped his folder against his leg and hissed, "If we miss the supervisor, don't blame me." But Liana was no longer listening to him. Something deep in her heart told her this moment was more important than any job. Liana walked slowly toward the elderly woman. She bent down and gave her a warm smile. "Ma'am," she said gently, "where do you live? I'll help you." The woman looked at her, surprised. "You will help me?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. Give me the bucket," Liana replied, stretching out her hand. Zane stepped back slowly, his face full of confusion. He watched as Liana lifted the heavy bucket from the woman's head and placed it on her own. The elderly woman stared at her, almost in disbelief. Zane opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again. He looked around, unsure of what to do. Liana turned to the woman. "Ma'am, lead the way," she said with a smile. As they began to walk, something unusual happened. The sun, which had been burning hot just moments ago, started to hide behind the clouds. Zane looked up and felt something stir in his chest. It wasn't anger. It was the feeling that something big, something he couldn't explain, was about to happen. Liana followed the woman into a quiet pathway. They arrived at a small house at the end of the road. The house looked very old. The walls had cracks everywhere, but the ground was clean, and the flowers near the corner looked fresh. Liana stood still and glanced around. "Is this your house, ma'am?" she asked softly. "Yes, my dear," the woman replied, pointing to a short tree beside the door. "Please set the water down there." Liana walked slowly to the tree. She bent down and gently placed the bucket beside it. She stood up and wiped her face with her hand. "I'll be going now, ma'am," she said. Just as Liana was about to step out of the yard, the woman called her back. My dear, she said gently, wait. Liana stopped and turned around. The woman walked closer and held her hand. Please, she said, go to that corner over there. You'll find a small clay pot. Bring it to me. Liana walked to the corner. Her fingers trembled as she picked up the small clay pot. She turned and walked back quickly, holding the pot with both hands. Here, ma'am, she said, handing it over. The woman smiled. The elderly woman held the pot carefully. She untied the red cloth and opened the pot very slowly. Liana leaned forward, her eyes wide. Then the woman pulled out something shiny. It was a bar of gold. Liana's eyes widened. She had never seen gold in real life before. The woman smiled and looked at her kindly. You are kind, she said. People like you are rare. She placed the gold in Liana's hand. Keep it for 7 days. Don't sell it yet. After 7 days, you can sell it and use the money to make your life better. Liana stared at the gold in shock. Then she dropped to her knees. Ma'am, thank you, she said, her voice filled with joy. God bless you. I didn't expect anything. I only helped because it felt like the right thing to do. The old woman nodded and gently touched her head. Go, my daughter, she said with a smile. Your kindness will open more doors for you. Liana stood up, still holding the gold tightly. Her eyes were shining. She turned and walked away slowly, her heart full of gratitude, a big smile on her face. She made her way home. She kept glancing at her handbag where the gold was hidden. She wanted to scream with joy, but held herself back as she walked. People noticed her and wondered why she was smiling alone, but Liana didn't care. She was thinking about one person, Zane. I need to tell him everything, she said to herself. She walked faster, almost running. When she reached the street where Zane lived, she saw him standing in front of his house, holding his phone to his ear. Her smile grew bigger. She waved and called out, Zane! But Zane didn't wave back. He slowly dropped the phone and looked at her with a hard expression. Liana stopped in front of him, still smiling. Zane, I have something to tell you, she said. You won't believe what happened after I left. But Zane raised his hand. So you left me just like that, Liana? He said, his voice cold. Liana's smile faded. I didn't leave you. I helped the old woman, remember? Zane shook his head. I thought you were serious about getting that job, but no, you just threw it away, just like that. Do you think life is a joke? Liana looked down. I know, but you always say you want a better life. Zane said, yet when it's time to act, you run off to play hero. Liana's hands began to shake. It wasn't like that. Please, let me explain. Zane turned his face away. There's nothing to explain, Liana. Wait, Liana said quickly. She reached into her handbag with shaky hands. Just look at this, she added, opening the bag wide. She slowly pulled out the bar of gold. The gold shined so brightly that Zane's eyes widened. He didn't say anything for a moment. He just stood there, staring at it. Then his voice came out low and sharp. Where did you get this, Liana? Where did you get it? Did you steal it? Liana's eyes opened wide in shock. No, I didn't steal anything. Zane took a step closer, his eyes still fixed on the gold. Tell me the truth. People don't just find something like this on the street. I didn't find it on the street, Liana said softly. Please, just listen to me. Liana looked Zane in the eyes. The old woman gave it to me, she said, after I helped her carry water to her house. Zane frowned. An old woman gave you gold? Yes, Liana said, her voice calm now. Her house was old, and she looked poor, but when I helped her, she asked me to bring her a small pot. The gold was inside. She said it was a gift for my kindness. Zane stayed silent. He looked down at the gold, then at Liana's face. His lips moved slowly. She just gave you this? Just like that? Liana nodded. Yes, she told me to keep it for 7 days before I sell it. Zane didn't say anything. He just kept staring at the gold. Then he slowly licked his lips and smiled. But it wasn't a happy smile. It was a strange smile, one that made Liana's heart beat a little faster. She didn't know why, but something didn't feel right. After Liana left, Zane stayed outside. He didn't go inside. He just sat on the small wooden bench by the wall. His eyes were fixed on the ground, but his mind was racing. How can an old woman give someone gold? He said quietly. She lives in a broken house. She looks poor. Something is not right. He stood up, then sat down again. I must find that woman. I must see her with my own eyes. He looked toward the road Liana had walked from. Then he whispered to himself, if she gave Liana gold, maybe she has more. The next morning, Zane left his house early. He didn't tell anyone where he was going. He went to the same street where he and Liana had seen the old woman. He stood under a tree and waited. People passed. The sun got hotter, but the old woman didn't come. He returned the next day. Still, she didn't show up. It was the third day. Zane was standing at the corner of the street again. His shirt was soaked with sweat, but he didn't care. Then he saw her, the same old woman. She was walking slowly with a pail of water on her head. Her feet moved gently along the dusty road. Zane's eyes lit up. He rushed to her side. "Ma'am, please let me help you," he said, reaching for the pail. The old woman stopped and looked at him. She didn't speak at first. She just stared into his eyes, as if trying to read his heart. Then slowly she nodded and gave him the pail of water. Zane balanced the water on his head and followed her quietly. On the outside he looked calm, but inside his thoughts were racing. "This is my chance," he told himself. They reached the woman's compound, just like before. The walls had cracks, but everything was tidy. Zane dropped the pail beside the small tree and turned to face her. He forced a small tear into his voice. "Ma'am," he said softly, "I want to say sorry for the way I spoke to you last time." The woman looked at him. She didn't say a word. "My father is very sick," Zane continued. "He's been in bed for days. We don't have money to buy medicine." He wiped his eyes, even though no real tears came out. "I didn't know where else to go," he said. "That's why I came." He lowered his head and waited, but deep inside, he wasn't thinking about any sick father. He was thinking about the gold. The old woman looked at Zane for a long time. Then she asked, "My son, do I look like someone who has money?" Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Zane opened his mouth but said nothing. He just looked down and sniffed loudly, still pretending to cry. The woman sighed. She turned slowly and started walking into her small house. Zane stood there silently. He watched her back as she walked away. Then he dropped to the ground, held his face, and made soft crying sounds. But in his mind, he was thinking, if she gave Liana gold, she can give me too. Just as the woman reached her door, she stopped and looked back at him. "Zane," she called. He looked up quickly. She pointed with her finger. "Go behind the house, under the tree. There's a small pot. Bring it to me." Zane jumped up. "Thank you, ma'am," he said, and ran to the back of the house. There, under a small mango tree, he saw the pot. It was dark and round, covered with a piece of old cloth. He looked around. No one was there. He lifted the cloth. His eyes grew wide. Inside the pot, there were gold bars. Not one, not two, but many. Zane held the pot and stared at the gold. His hand was shaking. He looked around again. Nobody was watching. He touched one of the bars and whispered, "Should I take everything? She won't know." He paused. Then he looked up at the sky and sighed. "No," he said, "I won't do that." Slowly, he placed the gold bars back inside the pot. He covered it with the cloth and carried it to the front of the house. The old woman was sitting on a small bench, waiting for him. He dropped the pot in front of her and forced a small smile. The old woman looked at the pot, then she looked at Zane. She nodded slowly, like she knew what he had been thinking. She opened the pot and picked out one gold bar. She stood up and placed it in Zane's hand. "Take this one," she said. "Keep it safe for 7 days. Don't touch it. After that, you can sell it." Zane nodded quickly. "Thank you, ma'am," he said. But inside him, he was not happy. One? Just one, he thought to himself. Liana got one. And now me too, one. But I saw more. Why can't I have all of them? He smiled at the woman, but in his heart, he was already planning something else. The old woman pointed behind the house. "Take the pot back where you found it," she said. Zane nodded. "Yes, ma'am." He carried the pot and started walking to the back. As he moved, he looked over his shoulder to see if the old woman was watching. As he got to the back of the house, he stopped. His heart was beating fast. He bent down, opened the pot again, and looked inside. The gold bars were still there, shining. He smiled quickly. He took 3 more bars and hid them inside his shirt. Then he closed the pot and placed it back under the tree. He wiped his hands and walked back to the front, smiling like nothing had happened. The old woman was standing by the door. She looked straight at him and asked, "You didn't touch anything in the pot, right?" Zane laughed and scratched his head. "No, ma'am, I only put it back like you said." The woman looked at him for a long time. Then she slowly nodded. "Okay, you can go." Zane smiled again and turned to leave. But deep in his heart, he felt a small fear. Did she know? Did she see me? Still, he walked away holding the stolen gold close to his chest. It was a quiet afternoon. Liana came home with some food items. As she walked closer to the door, she was surprised to see the old woman sitting on her doorstep. Ah, ma'am, Liana dropped her bag. How is your health? I hope everything is okay. The old woman looked at her. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Liana, she said slowly, did you take my gold? Liana's mouth opened wide. Her heart jumped. What? She said. No, ma'am, I didn't. I would never do that. The old woman didn't say anything. She just kept looking at her. Liana's hands began to shake. I swear, ma'am, she said, tears in her eyes. I didn't touch anything. After the old woman left, Liana sat on the floor thinking. Why did she ask me that? She whispered to herself. Then her eyes widened. Her mind went back to the gold. She remembered she had told Zane everything. She remembered how he kept looking at the gold. She closed her eyes. No, he's my friend. He can't do that. But something didn't feel right. He hadn't called her since that day, hadn't asked how she was doing, and now the gold was missing. Liana held her head in both hands. What if Zane did it? She didn't want to believe it, but deep in her heart, a small voice whispered, check on him. Liana couldn't sleep. Her heart was too heavy. The next morning, she walked straight to Zane's house. She knocked hard on the door. He came out yawning. Zane, she said, standing in front of him. Did you take the old woman's gold? Zane's eyes opened wide. Then he frowned. Me? He shouted. Are you okay? Why would you say that to me? Because she came to my house and asked, Liana said. You were the only other person who saw the gold. Zane raised his hand in anger. Don't insult me. I don't even know where she lives. Then why are you shouting? Liana asked. Zane turned away. I'm done with this nonsense, he said and walked off, shaking his head. That evening, Zane came back home. He was whistling as he opened the gate, but when he reached his door, he stopped. The old woman was sitting there, quiet, calm. Zane's eyes widened. Ma'am, he said, why are you here? She looked up at him and asked softly, where is my gold? Zane laughed quickly and scratched his head. Ma'am, I kept it where you told me to. I didn't touch anything, I swear. The woman's eyes didn't blink. She looked at him long and deep. Then she said, Are you sure? Zane nodded fast, but his hands were shaking behind his back. The old woman stood up slowly from where she sat. She looked at Zane with calm eyes. Her voice was soft, but her words were strong. If you took it, return it now. If you don't, be ready for what will happen. Zane opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The old woman turned and walked away. She didn't look back. Zane stood at the door, his hand on the wall. He breathed fast. He looked around, then said to himself, She's just an old woman. She can't do anything. My money is coming soon. I'll be fine. He went inside and locked the door. But that night he didn't sleep. A few days later, something strange happened. People in the street saw Zane walking around with no shoes. His clothes were dirty and torn. His hair was rough, and his face looked lost. He was laughing and talking to himself. Gold, I'm rich, he shouted, throwing sand in the air. Children ran away from him. Some women closed their shops and stared. Is that not Zane? One man asked. What happened to him? No one had an answer. Liana was walking down the road holding her small bag. The sun was hot and people were moving up and down. Then she saw someone coming from the other side. The person had no shoes, his shirt was torn, his hair was scattered. He was talking to himself and laughing. Liana stopped, her heart jumped. She looked again and shouted, Zane! The man stopped and looked at her. His eyes were red. His lips were dry. Zane, is that you? She asked again. But Zane turned his face and began to walk away, still talking to himself. Liana stood still. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. She then walked toward him before he could go far. She grabbed his shirt from the back. Stop there, she shouted. Zane tried to pull away, but he was weak. You're not going anywhere, Liana said, holding him tight. Tell me what happened to you. Who did this to you? Zane looked at her with tired eyes. He smiled and whispered, The gold is talking to me. Liana's hand shook. She pulled him to the side of the road. Zane, talk to me, please. What gold? What did you do? But Zane only laughed again and pointed to the sky. Money is sweet, he said, but it can burn your head. Liana looked into his eyes and felt cold all over. I hope it's not what I'm thinking. Zane looked at Liana. Then he started laughing loudly like someone who had lost his mind. He turned in circles and threw his hands in the air. I took her gold. I took the gold. It was me, he sang. He clapped his hands and laughed again. People on the street stopped to watch. Some shook their heads. Others whispered, "This boy has gone mad." Liana stood there, her mouth open. She moved closer to him, then held his arm and asked, "You mean you stole the gold?" "Zane, tell me the truth." Zane looked at her, his eyes wide. Then he smiled in a strange way and started dancing in one spot. "I told the pot to keep quiet," he said, pointing to the sky. "But the pot shouted. The gold was heavy, but I hid it under my shirt." "Shh, don't tell the tree." Liana stepped back, shocked. "You lied to me, Zane. You said you didn't take it. Why did you lie to me?" Zane started laughing again. "I was going to build a house in the sky. A big one, with gold chairs and a talking door," he said, crawling on the ground. Liana covered her mouth with her hands. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Zane had completely lost his mind, and now she knew why. Liana looked around. People were still standing far away and watching. She held Zane's arm tight. "You're coming with me," she said. "We're going to see that old woman now." But Zane shouted, "No, leave me. The gold is mine, mine and the frogs." He tried to pull away from her. He kicked his legs and waved his hands. Liana held on tight. She was sweating. "Help me," she cried. "Please, somebody help me hold him." Zane started rolling on the ground, laughing and shouting, "The sky is falling! The sky is falling!" A tall man with a cap stepped forward. "What's happening here?" he asked. Liana turned to him, still holding Zane's arm. "Please, sir," she said. "This is my friend. His name is Zane. Something is wrong with him. He has lost his mind." Zane was now crawling on the floor, talking to a stone. Liana continued, "I need help to take him to someone. Please help me." The man looked at Zane and nodded. "Okay," he said. "Let's carry him together. He needs help, fast." Zane suddenly stood up and shouted, "Don't let the pot see me." The man held him from one side, Liana held him from the other. They began to move slowly toward the old woman's house. They reached the small compound. The sun was low and the place was quiet. The old woman was sitting outside her house on a wooden bench. She had a stick beside her and her eyes were on the ground. She didn't look up. She looked like she was deep in thought, like her heart was heavy. Her face was calm, but her eyes looked tired, as if she had been waiting for something or someone. Zane was mumbling behind Liana. "The pot, the gold," the frog said. "Don't touch it." Liana ran to the old woman and fell on her knees. "Ma'am, please," she cried. "Please help." The old woman looked up slowly. Her eyes met Liana's. Liana pointed behind her. "It's Zane. He's the one who took your gold. He lied to you, and now he has gone mad." The old woman didn't say a word. She just listened. Liana's voice shook. "Please help him. He keeps calling your name. He said only you can help him." The old woman looked at Zane. She took one slow step toward him. Her eyes were sharp, but her voice was calm. "When my gold went missing," she said, "I asked him. I looked him in the eye." She pointed at Zane, who was now drawing on the ground with his finger and laughing. "I gave him a chance." The old woman continued. "He said no. He lied." Liana looked up quickly. Her eyes were full of worry. The old woman shook her head slowly. "Now, what is wrong with him is not from me. It came from above. I cannot help him." She turned away. Liana jumped up and ran to the old woman. She held her wrapper tightly. "Ma'am, please," she cried. "Please do it, for me." Tears fell from her eyes. "I know he did wrong. I know he took what he shouldn't have." The old woman stopped walking. "But please forgive him," Liana said again. "Please, I'm begging you. Help him. He's suffering." There was silence. Even Zane stopped laughing. He looked up slowly, as if he heard her voice clearly. The old woman turned and looked at both of them. Then she said, "Let me think." The old woman looked at Liana for a long time. She saw the tears on her face. She saw how tightly Liana was holding her wrapper. Then she nodded slowly. "If not for your good heart," the woman said, "I will not help him. He lied, he stole, and he mocked me." She looked at Zane. He was now sitting on the ground, pulling grass and laughing to himself. "But because of you," the woman said softly, "I will try. I will try for your sake." The old woman took a deep breath. She walked slowly to where Zane was sitting. He looked up at her with a strange smile. She didn't smile back. She placed her right hand on his chest. Then she pressed her palm to his chest once, then again. Zane's body shook, and suddenly he fell to the ground flat. His eyes closed. Liana screamed, "Ma'am, what happened?" The old woman raised her hand in the air and said, "Now we wait." The air was still. Zane was not moving. Everyone was silent. Liana bent down and touched Zane. She shook him gently. "Zane, wake up," she said. "Please, wake up." Zane moved his hand, then slowly opened his eyes. He blinked and looked around. "Where am I?" he asked in a weak voice. "What?" Then he saw the old woman standing beside him. His eyes opened wide. He tried to stand and run away, but Liana and the man beside her quickly held him down. "Stop, Zane," Liana said. "You're safe. Now, you were not well. You were mad." He looked confused. "What? Mad?" "Yes," Liana said. "You lost your mind. You were walking around with no shoes. You were talking to yourself." Zane turned slowly to the old woman. You helped me?" he asked. The woman didn't say a word. Liana nodded. "Yes, ma'am saved you." Zane knelt on the ground. "Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for saving me. I didn't know what I was doing. Please forgive me." Liana looked at him. "Zane," she said, "please, where is the gold? Tell the truth now." Zane scratched his head. He looked down at the ground. I gave it to someone," he said slowly. "Who?" Liana asked. "Who did you give it to?" "I don't know his name," Zane said, "but before I blacked out, he called me. He said the gold had changed." Liana frowned. "Changed? What do you mean?" Zane looked scared. He said the gold turned into pepper. Red pepper. I don't know how. That's what he told me." Liana stood up. She shook her head. "Zane, are you still lying? Or do you think I'm a fool?" "I'm telling the truth," Zane said. "I swear." That's what he said. Liana looked at him, doubt in her eyes. The air was quiet again as Liana stood there, staring at Zane. The old woman raised her hand slowly. "Liana," she said, "wait." Liana turned to look at her. The woman's voice was calm but strong. "Zane is not lying," she said. Liana looked surprised. "What do you mean, ma'am?" The old woman sat down on a wooden bench beside them. She looked at the ground for a moment, then looked back up. "The gold didn't turn to pepper," she said. "It was taken back by the true owner." Liana's eyes widened. "What? I don't understand." The woman nodded slowly. "The gold did not belong to me. I was only keeping it for someone, a spirit. When Zane took it, the spirit came for it. That is why he lost his mind." Zane's hands started shaking. He looked down in fear. The woman reached into her wrapper and brought out a small black bag. "This," she said, "is the gold. It came back to me yesterday. I didn't call for it. It just appeared here by my feet." Liana took a step back. "So everything he said was true?" "Yes," the old woman said. "He was punished because he took what was not his. But now the gold is back where it belongs." Zane fell to his knees again. "I didn't know. I thought it was just money," he said. The woman looked at him and said, "Not everything that shines is yours to touch." The place went silent. Even the air felt heavy. Zane was still on his knees, his eyes full of shame. He held his head and said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Please forgive me. I will never do such a thing again. Never." The old woman looked at him for a long time. Then she said, "Greed brought this upon you. If something is not your own, leave it. Be happy with what you have. Don't let your eyes lead your heart." Zane nodded quickly. "I understand now, ma'am. I understand." The woman then turned to Liana, her face softer now. She asked, "The gold I gave you, tomorrow will be the 7th day, right?" Liana looked up. "Yes, ma'am. Tomorrow makes it 7 days." The old woman smiled a little. "Good. Don't wait too long. Go and exchange it. Use it well. Use it to build your life. That gold was for someone with a good heart. It found you because you helped me without asking for anything." Liana's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much." The woman stood up slowly. "You can both go now. What needed to be done is done." Zane bowed his head. "Thank you, ma'am." Liana also said, "We're very grateful." They both walked out of the compound quietly. No one said a word, but deep inside, they both knew nothing would ever be the same again. And that is how everything ended. Liana received her reward, not because she asked for it, but because of her kind heart. Zane learned the hard way that when you take what does not belong to you, it will never end well. What you steal may look sweet for a moment, but in the end it'll bring shame, pain, or even madness. The moral of this story is simple. Always do good, even when no one is watching. Be content with what you have. Greed destroys, but kindness opens doors that even money cannot open. Now I would love to hear from you. What did you learn from this story? What part touched you the most? Please drop your thoughts in the comment section. I'll be reading all of them. There's another very interesting story I'll upload in a few days, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. So subscribe to my channel and turn on your notification bell so you'll be the first to know when it drops. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next story. Stay kind, stay wise, and remain blessed.